Cleveland Browns watched Jerome Ford walk out the door. After spending the offseason bolstering their offensive line, Cleveland suffers its first offensive departure as running back Jerome Ford heads to Washington. The Cleveland Browns have been aggressive this offseason, directing most of their energy and resources toward patching up an offensive line that has needed attention for some time. For the better part of free agency, the moves coming out of Cleveland pointed in one direction. Then Saturday morning arrived, and the first player from the offensive side of the 2025 roster walked out the door. Running back Jerome Ford has agreed to join the Washington Commanders, giving the Browns their first notable offensive departure of the cycle. It is a manageable loss given how the roster has evolved, but it closes a chapter on a player who contributed more to this organization than his modest statistical profile might suggest. How Ford fit into the Browns' offense. Cleveland selected Ford in the 5th round of the 2022 NFL Draft out of Cincinnati, where he had transferred after starting his college career at Alabama. He was never positioned as a featured back, but he carved out a dependable role in ways that do not always show up in the box score. His best season came in 2023, when he rushed for 813 yards and 4 touchdowns while also functioning as a reliable receiving option. That year he drew 63 targets, caught 44 passes, and scored 5 receiving touchdowns. For a player who came in as a late-round pick, that production represented a genuine return on a low-cost investment. Over his final 3 seasons with Cleveland, Ford was targeted 30 or more times each year. That consistency reflected something beyond raw talent. He was trusted in pass protection, which is a skill many young running backs take years to develop and in some cases never do. What changed for Ford in Cleveland? The Browns' 2025 NFL Draft reshaped the backfield picture in a significant way. Cleveland used a pick on Quinshon Judkins, who was brought in to eventually take over the lead back role that Nick Chubb had held for years. The team also selected Dylan Sampson, a receiving back who was drafted specifically to handle the pass-catching duties that had been part of Ford's value. Neither Judkins nor Sampson earned consistent trust in pass protection as rookies. That gap is precisely why Ford still logged nearly 300 snaps last season despite carrying the ball only 24 times. He was on the field because the Browns needed someone they could count on when the quarterback dropped back, even if the ground game was no longer running through him. With both young backs presumably heading into their second seasons with more responsibility and more familiarity with the system, the math on Ford's role in Cleveland became difficult to justify from a roster construction standpoint. The broader Browns' free agency picture. Before Ford's departure, Cleveland had already seen 2 defensive players leave the 2025 roster. Linebacker Devin Bush signed with the Chicago Bears, and defensive end Cameron Thomas headed to the Atlanta Falcons. Those exits drew less attention because the Browns had been so focused on offensive improvement. General Manager Andrew Berry added defensive tackle Kalia Davis on Friday night, continuing a methodical approach to reshaping the roster from multiple angles. The offensive line additions that define the early portion of Cleveland's free agency period represent the clearest signal of where the organization believes it needs to improve most heading into next season. Ford's departure is the first piece of that offensive picture to change. He leaves as a player who gave Cleveland 3 productive seasons in a role that required consistency over flash. Washington gets a back who knows how to stay on the field when it matters most. Cleveland Browns watched Jerome Ford walk out the door. Change is a constant in professional football. Rosters shift, players move, and teams are forced to make difficult decisions in pursuit of future success. For the Cleveland Browns, one of those moments arrived when they watched running back Jerome Ford walk out the door, beginning a new chapter elsewhere in the National Football League. For fans in Cleveland, the moment carried a mixture of emotions, gratitude for the memories Ford created and uncertainty about what his absence might mean for the team's backfield moving forward. A player who seized his opportunity. Jerome Ford was never the type of player who demanded the spotlight. Instead, he built his reputation through hard work, patience, and determination. When opportunities appeared, he made the most of them. In Cleveland's offense, Ford showed flashes of explosive talent. His ability to accelerate through open space made him dangerous on outside runs, while his balance and agility allowed him to slip through tight defensive gaps. Whether carrying the ball or contributing in the passing game, Ford demonstrated that he could be a versatile weapon. Coaches often praised his work ethic during practice. Teammates respected the quiet confidence he carried into every game. Even when he was not the primary focus of the offense, he prepared as if he might be called upon at any moment. Moments fans won't forget. Every player leaves behind memories, and Ford's time with the Browns produced several that fans will remember. There were the sudden bursts of speed down the sideline, when a simple handoff turned into a highlight play. There were clutch runs late in games when Cleveland needed a crucial first down to keep a drive alive. And there were the small, gritty plays, fighting through contact, pushing piles forward, refusing to go down easily. In a league where the difference between victory and defeat can be measured in inches, those moments mattered. The Dog Pound, Cleveland's famously passionate fan base, appreciated Ford's determination. He played with a style that reflected the identity of the city itself: tough, resilient, and never afraid of a challenge. The business of football. Despite the emotional connections that develop between players and teams, the NFL remains a business. Salary caps, roster limits, and strategic planning force organizations to make choices that are not always easy. For the Browns' front office, the decisions surrounding Ford likely involved many factors. The team must constantly evaluate its roster, considering both immediate performance and long-term planning. Sometimes that means younger players must step into larger roles, or the organization chooses to pursue different styles of play. When the news spread that Ford would be leaving, reactions came quickly. Analysts debated the impact. Fans shared their appreciation online. Inside the Browns facility, however, the focus remained on preparing for the future. A farewell in the locker room. Goodbyes in professional sports are rarely dramatic. More often, they happen quietly: handshakes, short conversations, and sincere wishes for success. Teammates reportedly gathered around Ford before he departed, offering respect and encouragement. In the tight-knit world of an NFL locker room, players understand the journey each of them faces. They know how much work it takes to reach the league and how quickly circumstances can change. For Ford, walking out of the facility meant leaving behind familiar faces, coaches who helped him grow, and a fan base that supported him through every carry. But it also meant stepping toward new possibilities. What it means for Cleveland. The Browns now face the